The Vel'karian Imperial flagship was the most impressive piece of engineering Liam Cordell had ever worked on. 3 miles long, systems so advanced he'd spent a week just learning the basics, and enough power running through it to supply a small planet. Which was probably why, when it failed catastrophically. Liam was in a maintenance corridor running diagnostics on environmental systems when the first explosion hit. The deck lurched, throwing him against the bulkhead. Emergency alarms shrieked across every frequency. Red lighting replaced normal illumination, and somewhere in the distance he heard the distinctive sound of hull breaches, atmosphere screaming into space. His training kicked in. Find shelter. Secure yourself. Stay alive until rescue. The maintenance corridor had an emergency shelter access, reinforced chambers designed to protect crew during catastrophic failures. Liam was heading toward it when he heard voices down an adjoining passage. A woman's voice, sharp with command and pain. "Kaela, stay close." A child's voice, frightened. "Mother, I'm scared." Emergency bulkheads were sealing throughout the ship, automatic protocols to contain breaches and protect critical sections. The bulkhead at the end of the passage was already descending. Liam ran. He reached the junction just as two figures came into view. A Vel'karian woman carrying a child, moving fast but limping badly. Blood stained her leg. She saw him and her expression went from desperate to calculating in an instant. "The shelter," Liam shouted over the alarms. "This way." She didn't hesitate, crisis overriding caution. They reached the emergency shelter as the corridor behind them suffered explosive decompression. Liam slammed his hand on the controls. The shelter door sealed with the kind of finality that meant they weren't getting out until rescue cut them free or systems restored. The shelter was small, maybe 12 feet square. Basic life support, emergency supplies, communication systems currently showing nothing but static. 3 benches along the walls. Stark lighting that made everyone look worse than they were. Liam took stock. The woman was Vel'karian nobility. He could tell from the quality of her clothing, the complex patterns in her bioluminescent scales, the jeweled ornaments in her long, swept-back ears. She held the child, a girl, maybe 8 years old in human developmental terms, with fierce protectiveness. Then he noticed the specific pattern of the woman's scale markings and his breath caught. The royal bloodline. The imperial crown jewels in her ears. "Your Empress Theressa Vel'kar." She said it with the kind of authority that made people instinctively bow, even in crisis. "And this is Princess Kaela, my daughter. Who are you?" "Liam Cordell. Maintenance technician. I was upgrading environmental systems when," he gestured at the chaos outside. "You're injured." The Empress looked at her leg like she'd forgotten about it in the rush. "Blast debris. It's manageable." "It's bleeding significantly and needs treatment or you'll go into shock." Liam moved to the emergency supplies. "With respect, Your Majesty, I need to treat that before we worry about anything else." She looked like she might argue, then glanced at her daughter's frightened face and nodded curtly. "Proceed, carefully." Liam worked with professional efficiency. The wound was deep but clean, no debris embedded. He cleaned it with solutions from the emergency kit, applied coagulant, sealed it with temporary synthetic skin. The Empress barely reacted to pain that must have been significant. "You've done this before," she observed. "Field medicine training. Required for maintenance crews working in dangerous environments." He secured the bandaging. "That'll hold until you can get proper medical attention. You'll need cellular regeneration therapy, but for now, you're stable." Princess Kaela watched him with huge violet eyes. "Are you human?" "I am. I've never met a human before." "Well, now you have, under exciting circumstances." Liam checked the shelter's systems. What he saw wasn't encouraging. "Your Majesty, we have a situation. The ship is damaged. I gathered that from the explosions." Her tone was dry despite circumstances. "It's worse than damaged. Main power is completely offline. Multiple hull breaches across forward sections. backup systems failing. He showed her the readouts. Life support in this shelter will hold. These chambers are designed to maintain occupants for up to 48 hours. But rescue might take a while. They'll have to stabilize the ship before they can safely cut us out. The Empress processed this information with visible calculation. How long? Hours, maybe longer. He met her eyes. We're safe here. Just not comfortable, and we're going to be stuck together for a while. She looked at him, really looked at him, with an expression that mixed wariness with grudging appreciation. What is a human maintenance technician doing on my flagship? Your government put out contracts for environmental system upgrades. My company won the bid through competitive process. I have clearance, documentation, and had zero political agenda beyond doing good work and getting paid. He sat on one of the benches. Now I'm just trying to keep us alive until rescue. Same goal you have, I'm guessing. Despite everything, she almost smiled. Yes, that's my primary goal. She held her daughter closer. Are you truly competent, or were you boasting about the medical treatment? I'm competent, not the best, but solid. You and your daughter are safe with me. That's not boasting, that's fact. The Empress studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then I suppose we wait together, Liam Cordell. The first hour was tense. Empress Theressa questioned him extensively, his background, his company, why he was in that particular corridor, whether he had any connection to political factions. Liam answered honestly about all of it. He was a technician. He fixed things. Politics gave him headaches. Most people in your position would be terrified, she observed. You're trapped with the Empress of 16 star systems, who could have you executed for looking at her wrong. You could, Liam agreed. But you won't, because you need me competent and functional to monitor the shelter systems. And because despite the crown, you're a parent protecting a scared child. That matters more than politics right now. It was exactly the wrong thing to say to an empress, and exactly the right thing to say to a mother. Her expression softened fractionally. You're either very wise or very foolish. Probably both. It's gotten me in trouble before. He checked the systems again, temperatures dropping. Not immediately dangerous, but life support heating is running on emergency reserves with main power offline. We'll get colder. Princess Kaela had been quiet, watching Liam with cautious curiosity. Now she spoke. Mr. Liam, are you scared? Yes, he said honestly. Being scared is normal when your ship explodes, but you can be scared and still do what needs to be done. Fear is information, not a command. Mother says fear is weakness. Your mother has to project strength for billions of people. That's different than being human or Vel'karian in private. He smiled at the child. Want to see how the shelter systems work. Understanding them might make them less scary. Kaela looked at her mother for permission. The Empress hesitated, then nodded. Liam showed Kaela the control panels, explaining in simple terms how life support circulated air, how the emergency power worked, how rescue teams would locate them. He made it educational rather than frightening, gave her something to focus on besides fear. The Empress watched these interactions with complex expression, suspicion gradually softening into something else. As the second hour passed, the temperature continued dropping, not dangerous yet but uncomfortable. Liam checked the reserves, they'd hold but barely. He explained this to the Empress honestly. We need to conserve warmth. Basic survival principle. He gestured to the thermal emergency blankets. We should huddle together. Shared body heat will extend the reserves and keep everyone comfortable. The Empress's immediate instinct was visible refusal. That's inappropriate. That's survival. Liam kept his tone professional. Your Majesty, I understand the cultural implications, but Kaela's already cold. You're injured and need to conserve energy for healing. I'm just offering practical solution to a practical problem. You're suggesting the Empress of the Vel'karian Empire huddle for warmth with a human maintenance worker. I'm suggesting 3 people trapped in a cold shelter. Use available resources to stay warm and alive. The ranks involved are irrelevant to hypothermia. She looked at him for a long moment, then at her daughter who was visibly shivering despite wrapped in blankets. Her expression did something complicated. You will maintain appropriate distance. Absolutely. Liam arranged the thermal blankets as effectively as possible, creating a small, insulated space. He settled himself in the least intrusive position possible, back against the wall, legs extended, offering warmth without demanding proximity. Kaela gravitated toward him first. Children had less cultural baggage about these things. She was cold, he was warm, and he'd been kind to her. She curled against his side naturally. The Empress watched her daughter seek comfort from the human, and something in her carefully maintained control cracked. She was a mother before she was an Empress. If accepting warmth from a stranger meant protecting Kaela, she'd do it. She settled beside them, maintaining as much dignity as possible while acknowledging necessity. The thermal blankets trapped their combined warmth. Temperature stabilized at more comfortable levels. "This is still inappropriate," she muttered. "Noted. I'll make sure to include that in my incident report." Empress maintained objections throughout survival procedures. Despite everything, she almost laughed. Hours passed. The awkwardness of forced proximity gradually dissolved into something more fundamental: three people surviving together in close quarters. Liam monitored systems when he could access them, providing updates on rescue progress. The damage was extensive. Teams were working but had to stabilize multiple breaches before they could safely reach trapped crew. To keep everyone alert, he talked. Not forced conversation, just calm narration. He explained what the rescue teams were probably doing, described other emergency situations he'd managed, told stories about Earth systems he'd worked on. His voice was soothing, professional, unthreatening. The Empress listened, her initial suspicion continuing to erode. He treated her with respect but not fearful deference, saw her as a person in crisis, not just a position to navigate. "Tell me about Earth," Kaela said drowsily. "What's it like?" Liam described Earth's oceans and mountains, cities and wilderness. Talked about human diversity, how billions of people figured out how to mostly coexist despite differences. Told her about constellations visible from his hometown. "Do you have family?" Kaela asked. "Parents, 2 brothers. They're probably worrying about me right now, assuming news of the ship Malfunction reached Earth." He smiled. "My mother always worried when I took maintenance contracts on ships. She'll say, 'I told you to become an accountant.'" "Why didn't you?" "Because accountants don't get to fix things in space, and I like fixing things." The Empress spoke quietly, her defenses worn down by pain and exhaustion. "That's remarkably simple philosophy. Most good things are simple. Complicated usually means someone's trying to hide something." He checked her bandages, still secure, no bleeding. "How did you become Empress, if you don't mind talking about it?" "My parents died when I was 16. Assassination attempt that succeeded." She said it flatly, old pain. "I became Empress because I was the heir. Spent the next decade learning to survive in a position where everyone wants something from you." "That sounds exhausting." "It is." She looked at Kaela, who drifted into light sleep against Liam's side. "Having Kaela changed things. Suddenly I had something more important than power or politics. Someone I needed to protect absolutely." "You're doing it, you're here with her." "I'm trapped with her, unable to protect her as I should." "You're doing everything possible," Liam said quietly. "That's all anyone can do, and she's not scared anymore. She feels safe. That's because you're here. That matters more than any amount of power." It wasn't political wisdom or courtly flattery, just genuine observation from someone who saw her fear as a parent rather than her status as ruler. The Empress was quiet for a long time. Then, almost against her will, she began talking. About the weight of her position. About balancing 16-star systems' competing interests. About how she'd built walls around herself because everyone approached her with agenda. "You don't have an agenda," she said. "I have an agenda. Stay alive, help others stay alive, eventually get paid for the work I completed before everything exploded. He adjusted the thermal blanket around Kaela. But I don't have a political agenda regarding you. You're a person in crisis who needs help. That's as complicated as it gets for me. That's remarkably naive. Probably, but it's how my parents raised me. Help people who need it. The rest is details. As the fourth hour approached, rescue teams reported they were making progress but still hours away. The temperature in the shelter had stabilized but remained cold. Everyone's exhaustion was showing. You should sleep, Liam said. Both of you, I'll monitor systems. I'm responsible for my daughter. And you're injured and exhausted. Staying awake doesn't make you more responsible, just more tired. He kept his tone gentle. I'll stay awake. If anything changes, I'll wake you immediately. The Empress tried to maintain alertness, but pain medication, stress, and exhaustion were overwhelming. Her eyes drifted closed, opened again. Closed. At some point, fighting it became impossible. Empress Theressa Vel'kar, ruler of 16 star systems, fell asleep with her head against a human maintenance technician's shoulder, her daughter secure on his other side. The three of them huddled under thermal blankets in a small shelter while her ship burned around them. For a woman who'd spent years trusting no one completely, showing no vulnerability, maintaining constant control, it was unthinkable. But in that moment, with systems failing and rescue uncertain, she made a choice. Trust the person who'd been consistently competent, kind, and protective since the moment they met. Liam stayed awake, monitoring what systems he could access, keeping them warm, protecting two people who'd fallen asleep believing he would. When rescue finally breached the shelter 6 hours after the initial malfunction, they found the Empress of the Vel'karian Empire and her daughter sleeping peacefully against a human who'd kept them alive. The rescue team froze, their Empress asleep against a human, their princess curled trustingly against the same stranger. The scene was so unprecedented that several reached for weapons before the team commander stopped them. "Stand down," he ordered quietly. "Read the situation, no threat, just survival." They woke the Empress gently. She took a moment to orient herself, where she was, what happened, who she was leaning against. Her first instinct was to check Kaela, who was fine, warm, drowsy. Then she looked at Liam with complicated expression, gratitude, embarrassment, something else. "Thank you," she said simply, "for keeping us alive." That just did what needed doing. Liam helped them both up, supporting the Empress. Her leg needed proper medical attention. Your rescue teams did the hard part. As they were evacuated, the Empress made a decision that surprised her guards. Liam stays close, not detained, not guarded, just present. The court's reaction was immediate and complex. Relief that the Empress survived. Questions about how she survived alone with a human. Shock that she'd been found sleeping against him. Some advisors wanted to spin it, minimize the human's role, cover up the vulnerability. The Empress shut that down with imperial authority. Liam Cordell saved my daughter's life and mine. He provided medical care, maintained shelter systems, kept us warm when temperatures dropped to dangerous levels. What you witnessed was survival, not scandal. He will be treated with the respect his actions deserve. Anyone who suggests otherwise will answer to me personally. The political implications rippled through the court. The Vel'karian Empire had complex relationships with humanity, trade partners but not close allies, with significant factions distrusting human expansion. An empress who trusted a human so completely undermined every narrative about human unreliability. Over the following days, as she recovered and the ship underwent repairs, Empress Theressa and Liam had several private conversations. She asked about his plans. "I have several months left on my contract if you still want the work done." He said it uncertainly. "Though I understand if you prefer I left." "Why would I prefer that?" "Political complications. I'm a human who had unprecedented access to you. That makes some people uncomfortable." "Some people," she said dryly, "are idiots." She was quiet for a moment. "I'm offering you a position. chief of maintenance systems, permanent post, significant status and access. Liam blinked. That's not a maintenance job, that's a court position. I need people around me I can trust absolutely. People who see problems and solve them without calculating political advantage. People who will protect my daughter not because she's a princess, but because she's a child who needs protection. She looked at him directly. You demonstrated all of that in 6 hours. I'd be foolish not to recognize its value. I'm not qualified for court politics. You're qualified to tell me the truth. That's rarer than you'd imagine at my level. She paused. I'm not asking for political expertise. I'm asking for the same competence and honesty you showed in that shelter. That's more valuable than any amount of diplomatic skill. Liam thought about it seriously. It would mean leaving his company, his relatively simple life. But he thought about Kaela asking about Earth constellations, about the Empress trusting him enough to fall asleep, about how sometimes the right choice wasn't the safe one. I accept, but I reserve the right to tell you when politics are getting ridiculous. That's exactly why I'm hiring you. Months later, Liam found himself at an Imperial function, not as a guest, but as part of the Empress's inner circle. He'd adapted to his role, advising on technical matters, but also providing honest perspective the Empress valued. Between formal events, Princess Kaela ran up to him with the unself-conscious affection of a child who'd forgotten to maintain royal distance. Mr. Liam, will you tell me more Earth stories later? After your diplomatic lessons, sure. They're boring. They're important, and boring things are usually the most important. She sighed dramatically and ran off. The Empress watched the interaction with genuine warmth. An advisor approached her, speaking quietly. Your Majesty, maintaining such close connection to a human, some factions remain concerned. Some factions, the Empress replied, didn't see me at my most vulnerable, didn't see me injured, trapped, unable to protect my daughter as I should. Liam saw all of that and responded with competence, kindness, and protection without asking what he'd gain. She looked at the advisor directly. That revealed character more than any political maneuvering ever could. That's why he's here. That's why he stays. Later, in a private moment, the Empress and Liam stood on an observation deck watching stars. Do you ever regret it, she asked, accepting this position? Sometimes, when court politics get especially stupid. He smiled. But then Kaela asks me about Earth constellations, or you ask my honest opinion about something. And I remember why I said yes. Because you like fixing things. Because you trusted me enough to fall asleep. That mattered. She was quiet for a moment. It was the hardest thing I've done in years. Letting go of control enough to trust someone that completely. Every instinct I developed said it was dangerous. But you did it anyway. Because you'd earned it through consistent competence and care. She looked at him. That night in the shelter, that changed everything for me. Not politically, personally. I'd forgotten what it felt like to trust someone without calculation. I just kept you warm and alive. You did more than that. You saw me as a person before a position. You protected my daughter because she needed protection, not because she's a princess. You stayed awake monitoring systems so we could sleep safely. She paused. That's what trust looks like. That's what I'd been missing. Below them, the Empire continued functioning. Billions of lives moving through their days, powered by systems Liam maintained and politics the Empress navigated. But in that quiet moment, they both understood that sometimes the most important things happen in small shelters during catastrophic failures. When vulnerability meets genuine care. When someone chooses compassion over calculation. When trust earned in darkness illuminates everything after. A single night of shared survival had reshaped destinies. Not through grand political gestures but through simple human and Vel'karian decency in crisis. And that, they both knew, was worth every complication it created.